Taeho winced as his foot caught on a root, sending a jolt of pain through his injured leg. The blue fluid, what his people call blood, continued to seep through the makeshift bandage he'd applied after climbing from the wreckage of his ship. Around him, Earth's forest grew darker with each passing minute, the unfamiliar sounds intensifying as night creatures awakened. Maintain distance from subjects at all times, he whispered, reciting Federation protocol even as he limped toward the human settlement. The irony wasn't lost on him. After 3 cycles of perfect observation, here he was, about to make direct contact with the very species he'd been studying. A branch snapped somewhere behind him. Taeho froze, his breath caught in his throat. His species had evolved as scholars, not warriors. The sensory ridge along his spine tingled with warning. A predator was tracking him. He quickened his pace despite the pain. The lights of the human settlement glimmered through the trees, tantalizingly close yet still too far. His 4-fingered hand clutched the universal translator tighter. The device had absorbed enough human language to form basic communications, but would it be enough? The howl came again, closer this time. Taeho's scientific mind identified it as a large canid predator. A wolf, humans called them. His survival instinct simply screamed danger. When he heard panting behind him, Taeho abandoned all pretense of caution and broke into a stumbling run. The forest floor was treacherous in the darkness, roots and rocks seemingly positioned perfectly to trip an injured alien fleeing for his life. He burst from the tree line into an open field. Ahead stood structures, human dwellings constructed of local materials. Simple but effective, just like much of what he'd observed about this species. The nearest building had light spilling from transparent sections. Windows, his research notes supplied helpfully. The growl behind him became a snarl. Taeho didn't look back. His injured leg gave out as he reached what appeared to be a pathway leading to the nearest dwelling. He crawled the remaining distance, the translator and emergency beacon clutched against his chest. Just as he reached the elevated platform before the entrance, the predator lunged. Taeho felt hot breath on his neck, heard snapping jaws, and then a sudden bright light flooded the area. "What in the world?" a human voice called out. "Hey, get away from there." The wolf retreated from the light, growling but backing away. Taeho turned to see his first unobstructed view of a human up close. The creature stood on 2 legs as expected, wore artificial coverings, and held a light-producing device in one hand. Its face displayed an expression Taeho interpreted as shock. "Stars above," the human said, its vocal patterns registering as male according to Taeho's research. You're not from around here, are you?" Taeho activated his translator, which emitted a soft blue glow. "Help," he managed, the device converting his natural clicks and whistles into human speech. "Injured. Ship crashed." The human's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Taeho's research indicated this was a common reaction to surprise, instead of running away screaming. A response Taeho had calculated at a 68% probability. The human stepped closer. "You're bleeding," the human said, pointing to Taeho's leg. "Come inside before that wolf comes back. I'm Do-hyun, by the way." Taeho blinked his inner eyelids in confusion. The probability matrices he'd developed had not predicted this calm response. Perhaps humans were even more unusual than the Federation realized. With Do-hyun's help, Taeho limped inside the dwelling. The interior was warm and filled with objects that matched his research: furniture, technology far more primitive than his own, and decorative items that served no apparent survival purpose. Fascinating. "Sit here," Do-hyun said, guiding him to a soft surface. "I need to call someone." "No," Taeho's translator conveyed urgently. "No authorities. Federation protocols." He paused, realizing the human wouldn't understand. "Danger for you. For me. If discovered." Do-hyun studied him for a long moment. "You're afraid of being found." Taeho nodded, grateful that this gesture appeared to be universal. My presence here violates rules, and there may be others coming. Not friendly. All right, Du Hyun said, setting down a communication device he'd picked up. But that leg needs treatment. I'm a veterinarian, an animal doctor. Will your biology react badly to our medicines? Tai-ho accessed his research on human medical practices. Unknown. Basic cleaning safe. No internal medicines. As Du Hyun gathered supplies, Tai-ho surveyed the room more carefully. His gaze stopped on a wall covered with captured images, photographs. They showed Du Hyun with other humans, including smaller ones at various developmental stages. Family unit. Tai-ho asked when Du Hyun returned. The human smiled. A friendly gesture, Tai-ho knew, while cleaning the blue blood from his leg. Yes, that's my family. My wife Ji-young is working night shift at the hospital. Kids are with my parents tonight, thankfully. Explaining you to a 5-year-old and 8-year-old might be challenging. Tai-ho's translator struggled with some concepts but conveyed enough meaning. Fortunate timing, he agreed. So, Du Hyun said as he wrapped Tai-ho's leg with a clean white material, want to tell me how you ended up being chased by a wolf in my front yard? And maybe what you are, and where you're from. Tai-ho hesitated. Every moment of this interaction violated years of careful protocols, yet the human had already saved his life and was treating his injury. The partial truth seemed appropriate. Observer, he explained. Study developing species. Ship malfunction. Crash. He pointed upward. Come from there. Many worlds, many peoples. Federation. Do Hyun's hands paused in their work. You're saying you're an alien scientist who crashed while studying us. Tai-ho confirmed with a nod. To his surprise, Du Hyun laughed. Well, I hope we make for interesting research. Though I'm guessing get chased by wolves into a vet's front yard wasn't part of your study plan. Tai-ho found himself making the chirping sound that signified amusement among his people. Unexpected field work, his translator conveyed. As the night deepened outside, Du Hyun made them both beverages, checking first that water was safe for Tai-ho's system. They talked, haltingly at first, then with growing ease as the translator adapted to Du Hyun's speech patterns. Tai-ho knew rescue would eventually come. He knew his career might end for this protocol breach, but watching Du Hyun's genuine curiosity and kindness, he couldn't bring himself to regret the crash that had brought him face to face with humanity. Outside, the wolf howled once more, but Tai-ho no longer felt afraid. He had found safety with a human, the first of many surprises this species would reveal. Do Hyun's wife, Ji-young, took the news about their alien visitor better than expected. After her initial shock, her medical training kicked in. She examined Tai-ho's wound with professional interest. The bleeding has stopped, but I'm concerned about infection, she said. Your biology is obviously different from ours. Tai-ho nodded, his large eyes blinking slowly. My people heal quickly, but your help is appreciated. 3 days passed. Tai-ho's translator improved as it absorbed more language. Du Hyun and Ji-young agreed to keep him hidden while they figure out what to do. They moved him to a small storage room attached to their workshop, converting it into simple living quarters. On the 4th morning, Du Hyun's parents arrived unexpectedly with the children. Surprise, called 8-year-old Jin-ho as he burst through the door. Grandma said we could come home early. Ji-young froze, glancing toward the workshop where Tai-ho was supposed to be resting. Daddy, whose stuff is in the workshop? Asked 5-year-old Mina, already heading toward the door. There's a funny light. Du Hyun and Ji-young exchanged panicked looks. Before either could react, Mina had pushed open the workshop door. The resulting scream brought everyone running. They found Mina standing in the doorway, staring wide-eyed at Tai-ho, who had pressed himself against the far wall. Children, come here, Ji-young said firmly, but neither child moved. Jin-ho stepped forward instead of back. Are you an alien? He asked bluntly. Tai-ho's translator processed the question. Yes, he replied simply. The tension broke when Maina giggled. He sounds funny. Explaining the situation to Do-hyun's parents proved more challenging. His mother nearly fainted, while his father reached for the phone to call authorities. Only the children's instant fascination with Tae-ho convinced the grandparents to listen before acting. If the government finds him, they'll take him away to be studied, Jin-ho said with the certainty of a child who had watched too many science fiction movies. They'll do experiments on him. We have to protect him. Out of the mouths of babes, Do-hyun muttered, but the argument worked. By evening, the entire family had sworn to secrecy. Tae-ho found himself surrounded by humans full of questions. The children were the most direct. Do you have laser guns? Jin-ho wanted to know. No weapons, Tae-ho explained. Scientist, not soldier. How old are you? Mina asked. Tae-ho calculated. In your years, 112. This revelation caused great excitement. Even Do-hyun's father seemed impressed. With such long lives, your people must have accumulated great wisdom, he said. Tae-ho made a gesture the humans had come to recognize as his version of a shrug. Long life not guarantee wisdom. My people often study much, experience little. Days turned into weeks. The family adjusted to Tae-ho's presence with surprising ease. Jin-ho and Maina treated him as a combination of teacher and playmate. Do-hyun and his father helped Tae-ho recover components from his crashed ship, working at night to avoid detection. Jae-young taught Tae-ho about human medicine, comparing it to the medical practices of his people. Do-hyun's mother overcame her initial fear and taught him to cook simple dishes, delighted when he showed interest in her kimchi recipe. Your species adapts so quickly, Tae-ho observed one evening as the family ate dinner together. His translator now worked perfectly, capturing even subtle language nuances. Most beings would fear difference. Children don't fear what they don't understand. They're curious about it, Jae-young said, watching Mina show Tae-ho how to use chopsticks for the 5th time. We adults could learn from them. 1 month after the crash, Tae-ho's recovery beacon began pulsing more rapidly. My people have detected the signal, he explained. They will send rescue soon. The news brought unexpected sadness to the household. Even Do-hyun's father, initially the most suspicious, seemed disappointed. Will you come back to visit? Mina asked that night as Jae-young tucked her into bed. Tae-ho stood in the doorway, observing this nightly ritual he had come to find fascinating. Federation rules forbid return to unincorporated planets, he said gently. That's a silly rule, Mina declared. Later that night, Tae-ho found Jin-ho sitting alone on the porch, staring at the stars. You will leave soon, the boy said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Will you tell your people about us? About how we helped you? Tae-ho considered this. Yes, but carefully. Some would not understand. Jin-ho nodded as if this made perfect sense. Adults often don't. You are young but wise, Tae-ho said. No, Jin-ho replied. Just human. The following day, as sunset painted the sky in colors Tae-ho had never seen on his homeworld, the family gathered in the backyard. Do-hyun had helped Tae-ho build a small communication device from salvaged ship parts. This will allow me to speak with the rescue ship when it arrives, Tae-ho explained. I must direct them to a safe landing location away from human settlements. As if on cue, a faint light appeared in the darkening sky. The family watched it grow larger. Will they take you straight home? Jin-ho asked. First to a Federation outpost, Tae-ho replied. I must report my findings. What will you tell them about humans? Do-hyun asked. Tae-ho looked at each family member in turn. That you are far more than my people believe. That you accept difference with grace. That your children teach your elders. That you helped a stranger without seeking reward. Jae-young wiped away a tear. We'll miss you. I have studied thousands of species, Tae-ho said. His voice translated into the soft evening air. None have ever made me feel belonging. This is new to me. The light in the sky grew brighter. Soon, they could make out the shape of a small craft, similar to but larger than Taeho's crashed vessel. They're coming, Do-hyun said. Mina suddenly ran into the house, returning moments later with a small object clutched in her hand. Take this, she said, pressing it into Taeho's four-fingered hand. So you remember us. It was a small clay figure she had made, roughly shaped like Taeho. The alien scientist who had come to study humans felt something unexpected within him, an emotion his people rarely acknowledge. I will treasure this, he said, carefully storing the figure in the pouch at his waist. And I will never forget. As the rescue ship's lights illuminated the yard, casting long shadows across the grass, Taeho realized his research on humans would be forever biased. He had not simply observed them. He had come to care for them. The ship landed. The door opened. And Taeho knew that whatever consequences awaited him for breaking protocol, he would not regret a single moment with the family that had taken in a stranger from the stars. The morning had begun like any other. Taeho helped Jin-ho with his science homework, while Do-hyun checked on a sick horse at a neighbor's farm. Jae-young prepared for her hospital shift, and Maina played in the yard under Grandma's watchful eye. None of them noticed the small metallic orbs that silently descended from the clouds, hovering just beyond the property line. The first blast hit the workshop where pieces of Taeho's ship were stored. The explosion sent a shockwave across the yard, knocking Mina to the ground. The second blast struck closer to the house, leaving a smoking crater in the garden. Inside. Everyone inside. Do-hyun's father shouted, scooping up Mina and running for the door. Taeho dropped Jin-ho's science book, his sensory ridge flaring in alarm. He knew that energy signature. He had studied it in Federation history classes. Purifiers, he whispered, the word thick with dread. 3 sleek drones swept over the house, their metal bodies gleaming in the morning sun. Each bore the same symbol, a red star with a line through it. They moved with military precision, forming a triangle above the yard. Do-hyun burst through the front door, having raced back from the neighbor's farm at the sound of explosions. What's happening? He shouted. Hide, Taeho urged the family. They're here for me. But it was too late for hiding. A larger drone descended, hovering at eye level. A beam of light shot from its center, projecting the image of a humanoid figure with scaled skin and 6 eyes. Attention primitive settlement, the figure announced in a voice that somehow spoke perfect Korean. We have tracked a Federation observer to this location. Surrender the alien immediately or face cleansing. Jae-young pulled the children behind her. What does that mean? She asked Taeho. They will kill everyone. Taeho replied simply. They believe developing worlds should be sterilized, not allowed to join the Federation. Do-hyun grabbed a shovel leaning against the porch. Not happening, he said firmly. The projected figure laughed. Your primitive weapons are useless. You have 1 hour to deliver the observer. After that, we begin with this dwelling and expand outward. Before anyone could respond, police sirens wailed in the distance. The drones rose higher but remained visible. 3 police cars pulled up to the property. Chief Sang-min stepped out of the first, hand on his holstered gun. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Taeho, but quickly returned to the hovering drones. Someone want to tell me what's going on here? He asked calmly. Mrs. Lee called about explosions, and I see she wasn't exaggerating. Do-hyun stepped forward. Chief, this is complicated. Those machines are alien, Sang-min interrupted. And so is your guest, I'm guessing. He nodded toward Taeho. Town's been talking about the strange visitor staying with you. Most figured he was a foreigner with a skin condition. Taeho stepped forward. I am the one they want. If I surrender, perhaps they will spare your town. Sang-min studied him. Son, I've been police chief here for 20 years. I know when someone's feeding me a line. These folks wouldn't be protecting you if you were the type to bring trouble deliberately. He turned to his officers. Call everyone. Tell them to bring hunting rifles, farm tools, whatever they've got, and get the school bus to evacuate children and elders to the cave system in the mountains. One of the younger officers looked terrified. Sir, those are actual aliens. And this is our actual town, Sang-min replied firmly. Last I checked, we don't hand over guests to anyone who comes making threats. Within 30 minutes, the farmhouse had become the center of an impromptu defense force. Farmers arrived in trucks loaded with tools. The local hunting club brought rifles. The high school science teacher, Yi-jun, arrived with chemicals from the lab. This is remarkable, Tai-ho said to Do-hyun as they watched the townspeople organize. They barely know me. Most have never seen me. Yet they come to fight. That's what neighbors do, Do-hyun replied simply. A loud humming filled the air as the hour deadline approached. The drones descended again, now numbering at least 20. The holographic figure reappeared, larger than before. Your time is up, it announced. Surrender the observer. Sang-min stepped forward. Though not a tall man, he carried himself with the confidence of someone used to being respected. This is Chief Sang-min Park of Riverside. I speak for our community. Your demands have been considered and rejected. This visitor is under our protection. The holographic figure's 6 eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. You protect an alien over your own kind. Foolish primates. His presence has doomed you. No, Sang-min replied. Your arrival doomed you. We don't take kindly to threats here. The first drone attacked without warning, firing a beam of energy toward Sang-min. But Yi-jun was ready. He threw a glass container that shattered against the drone, coating it with a chemical mixture. The drone sputtered, its flight path wobbling before it crashed to the ground. How? Tai-ho gasped. Simple acid-base reaction, Yi-jun said with a shrug. Figured if it flies, it needs clean intake valves. The other drones began firing indiscriminately. The townspeople scattered for cover, returning fire with hunting rifles. Most bullets bounced off harmlessly, but a few found weak spots, bringing down 2 more drones. Do-hyun pulled Tai-ho toward the barn. If these are your Federation's technology, help us fight them. Tai-ho hesitated, then nodded. The power cells have a weakness. Impact after rapid temperature change can rupture them. Do-hyun relayed this to Yi-jun, who grinned. Freeze them, then hit them. I can work with that. Using fire extinguishers from every vehicle and building, coupled with well-aimed rocks and bullets, the townspeople managed to disable 5 more drones, but more kept coming. A larger craft appeared overhead, hovering ominously. A beam of light shot down, scanning the area. They're looking for me, Tai-ho realized. The beacon in my emergency pack is still active. Jae-young, who had been helping treat minor injuries, looked up. Can you use it? Draw them away. I would need to reach my crashed ship, Tai-ho said. Parts there could amplify the signal. Sang-min overheard. I'll take him, he said. The rest of you keep these flying garbage cans busy. As Sang-min and Tai-ho slipped away toward the forest, the holographic commander appeared once more. Your resistance is noted, it said. And futile. This planet is now classified for complete sterilization. The cleansing begins with this settlement. Mina, who had refused evacuation to stay with her parents, stepped forward before anyone could stop her. Looking up at the massive hologram, she spoke clearly. You're just a bully, she said. And my daddy says bullies are always afraid of something. What are you afraid of? The hologram flickered briefly. Then, with unexpected honesty, it replied, species like yours becoming species like ours. The battle resumed with renewed intensity. But now the humans fought with something more than just tools and weapons. They fought with the sudden understanding that the universe feared them not for their weapons, but for their potential. Sang-min and Tai-ho reached the crashed ship just as dawn broke the next day. They had traveled through the forest all night, avoiding purifier search drones by using the natural cover of Earth's vegetation. It's smaller than I expected, Sang-min said, looking at the half-buried vessel. Research craft only, Tai-Ho explained as he pulled away camouflaging branches, not meant for combat. They worked quickly to salvage what remained of the communication array. Tai-Ho's four-fingered hands moved with precision despite his urgency. When he finally extracted a small crystal device from the wreckage, his expression brightened. "This will help," he said. "Core transmitter still functional." When they returned to town, they found the landscape transformed. The peaceful farming community had become an ingenious fortress. Do-hyun met them at the edge of town, driving a tractor that had been modified with metal plating and what appeared to be drone parts attached to the front. "We've been busy," he said simply. The town center had been converted into a command post. The roof of the general store now held a makeshift communication tower built from satellite dishes, radio equipment, and parts from Tai-Ho's emergency beacon. Inside the store, Jin-Ho and several other children sat cross-legged on the floor around a captured drone. They had connected it to a video game console, and Jin-Ho was navigating its systems using a controller. "Look what we figured out," he called excitedly when he saw Tai-Ho. "The drone's navigation system works just like my racing game." Tai-Ho stared in disbelief. "That's a military-grade system. How did you access it?" Jin-Ho shrugged. "The password was just purifier spelled backward. Not very creative." Across the room, Yi-jun and a team of farmers had created a workshop where they were modifying hunting rifles. "We're coating the bullets with a mixture of chemicals that disrupts their energy shields," Yi-jun explained. "It won't destroy them, but it creates a brief window where regular bullets can penetrate." Outside, farmers had positioned tractors and harvesters in a defensive ring around the town. Each machine had been modified with makeshift weapons or reinforced to serve as barricades. "Your people have done the impossible," Tai-Ho said to Sang-min. "This level of adaptation should take months or years." "Necessity," Sang-min replied with a shrug. "Humans work best under pressure." Tai-Ho connected his salvage transmitter to the communication tower. "I can now send a distress signal to the Federation, but help will take time to arrive." "How much time?" Do-hyun asked. "5 of your days, at minimum." Sang-min nodded grimly. "Then we hold out for 5 days." That night, the Purifier forces launched their first coordinated attack. Drones swarmed from all directions, firing energy weapons that left smoking craters where they hit. But the humans were ready. Farm sprayers had been filled with Yi-jun's chemical mixture and positioned around the perimeter. When the drones came into range, the sprayers activated, coating multiple drones at once. The affected machines faltered in midair, their systems compromised by the simple earth chemicals. "It's working," shouted a farmer as a drone crashed near his position. The children controlling the captured drones sent them into the midst of the enemy forces. Programmed to recognize each other as friendly, the Purifier drones didn't fire on the hijacked machines until it was too late. Jin-Ho managed to crash his drone directly into what appeared to be a command unit, taking out 3 enemy drones at once. "Did you see that?" he yelled excitedly, just like the bonus level. The battle raged for hours. The humans took losses, buildings damaged, some injuries, but no lives were lost. By dawn, the Purifier forces retreated, leaving dozens of disabled drones scattered across the farmland. "We did it," Do-hyun said in amazement as he surveyed the aftermath. "First wave only," Tai-Ho cautioned. "They will analyze our defenses and adapt." "So will we," Sang-min said firmly. Over the next 3 days, the pattern repeated. The Purifiers would attack with new tactics, and the humans would find creative ways to counter them. When the drones switched to infrared targeting, the townspeople covered buildings with reflective material from emergency blankets. When sonic weapons were deployed, Yi-jun created simple noise-canceling devices using speakers and microphones from the high school music room. Tai-Ho worked tirelessly alongside them, sharing his knowledge of Federation technology. Each night, he sent updated distress signals, adding details about the human resistance. "Your people fight with remarkable spirit," he told Du Hyun as they worked to repair the communication tower after a particularly damaging attack. Most species would surrender after the first assault. Giving up isn't really our style, Du Hyun replied with a tired smile. On the fourth day, the attacks suddenly stopped. The townspeople used the respite to strengthen defenses and treat injuries. Children worked alongside adults, their natural creativity proving invaluable in finding solutions to alien problems. Mina approached Taiho as he monitored his transmitter. "Are your friends coming soon?" she asked. "Yes," he assured her. "One more day, perhaps two." "Good," she said seriously. "Because I think the bad aliens are getting mad. Look." She pointed skyward. A large shadow had appeared over the town, visible even through daylight. The Purifier command ship had descended from orbit and now hovered ominously above them. "They're done testing us," Sang-min said as the townspeople gathered to stare upward. "That's their real weapon." A beam of light shot down from the ship, projecting the six-eyed commander's image in the town square. Larger than before, the hologram towered over the gathered humans. "Your resistance has been," the commander paused, "educational. But it ends now. We offer one final opportunity for the observer to surrender. Refuse, and we begin planetary sterilization protocols." Taiho stepped forward. "This isn't their fight. It's between the Federation and the Purifiers." "No," Jinho said, grabbing Taiho's arm. "It became our fight when they attacked our home." Sang-min nodded in agreement. "What the boy said. We stand together." The commander's multiple eyes narrowed. Primitive solidarity. Touching but futile. The hologram vanished. Moments later, the massive ship began to glow with building energy. Sensors that Yi-jun had constructed from drone parts began wailing in alarm. "That's a sterilization cannon," Taiho explained, his voice thick with dread. "It will destroy everything within 50 of your kilometers." Do-hyun looked at the ship, then at his children, then at the drone parts scattered around the town square. A slow smile spread across his face. "Maybe," he said, "but first they have to fire it. And every weapon has a trigger." "That's a sterilization cannon powering up," Taiho said, pointing to the massive ship overhead. His voice trembled with fear. "We have maybe 30 minutes before it fires." Sang-min called everyone to the town hall. People packed the small building, faces tense but determined. Children stood alongside adults, no longer sent away for safety. This fight belonged to everyone. "Federation help won't arrive in time," Taiho told them. "The Purifiers will destroy everything within 50 kilometers." The room fell silent. Then Do-hyun stood up. "We take the fight to them," he said simply. Taiho blinked in confusion. "That's impossible. Their ship has defenses that would destroy any approaching vessel." Jinho tugged at his father's sleeve. "What about our drones? They think they're friendly." A murmur of excitement spread through the crowd. Do-hyun nodded at his son. "Jinho's right. We have 12 captured drones. If we can reprogram them to carry people." "I can do that," Yi-jun interrupted. "The weight calculations are simple physics. And I found something in their programming," Jinho added. "A backdoor. Their security code changes every hour, but it follows a pattern. Like a simple math problem." Taiho stared at the small human in amazement. "You decoded their security algorithm." Jinho shrugged. "It's like the puzzle games Mom gives me. Pattern recognition." The plan came together with shocking speed. 12 volunteers would ride the captured drones to the Purifier ship. Once aboard, they would use Taiho's knowledge of Federation technology to disable the sterilization cannon. Meanwhile, the rest of the town would create a massive distraction using every trick they had developed over the past 4 days. "This is suicide," Taiho said privately to Sang-min as preparations began. The police chief nodded. "Probably. But sitting here waiting for death is certain suicide." Taiho had a choice. In the confusion, he could take his emergency pod, now repaired, and escape. The Federation would eventually find him. He would face discipline for contact with humans, but he would live. The thought vanished as quickly as it came. These humans had protected him when they could have surrendered him. They had welcomed him into their homes, shared their food, taught their children not to fear difference. He would not abandon them now. "I'm coming with you," he told Sangmin. The assault team gathered at the edge of town. Each person carried homemade weapons, farming tools reinforced with drone parts, hunting rifles modified with alien technology, and backpacks filled with Yi Jun's chemical mixtures. Do Hyun hugged his children goodbye. "Be good for your mother," he told them firmly. "I'm coming too," Jin Ho insisted. "The drones respond best to me." After heated argument, it was decided. Jin Ho would join the assault team, piloting the drones remotely from the captured command unit. At 8 years old, he would help lead the most important mission in human history. The attack began at sunset. The remaining townspeople created a massive distraction, firing modified flare guns and setting off chemical reactions that looked like weapons fire. The purifier drones responded immediately, swarming toward the false attack. Meanwhile, the 12 captured drones rose silently on the opposite side of town, each carrying a human volunteer plus Taeho. They approached the massive ship from below, using the angle to avoid detection. Security code changing in 3 minutes. Jin Ho's voice came through the makeshift communication devices. "Be ready to move fast." When they reached the ship, Jin Ho worked his magic. The drones transmitted the predicted security codes, and access hatches opened automatically. The assault team slipped inside just as alarms began to sound. "They've detected us," Sangmin said, readying his modified shotgun. Taeho led them through the corridors, following the energy signatures he could sense with his species' natural abilities. They encountered resistance, purifier soldiers with advanced weapons, but the narrow hallways negated the aliens' technological advantage. Human ingenuity and farming tools proved surprisingly effective in close quarters. "The main control room is ahead," Taeho said, after they fought their way deeper into the ship. "But it will be heavily guarded." Do Hyun pulled out something that looked like a small drone attached to a farm sprayer. Not for long. The homemade bomb worked perfectly, temporarily disabling the control room's defenses. The humans stormed in, overwhelming the surprised purifier crew before they could react. "Find the weapon controls," Taeho shouted, rushing to the main console. The six-eyed commander appeared from a side chamber, weapon raised. "Primitive insects," he hissed. "You dare." His words ended abruptly as Mina's grandmother, the oldest member of the assault team, swung her cast iron skillet with surprising strength. The commander crumpled to the floor. "I never liked bullies," the old woman said calmly. With the command crew subdued, Taeho and Do Hyun worked frantically to disable the sterilization cannon. Using Jin Ho's remote assistance, they navigated the complex systems, shutting down one after another. "It's still charging," Taeho said in panic. "There must be a backup system." Do Hyun studied the alien controls, then did something no Federation engineer would ever consider. He physically ripped out the power conduits. Sparks flew and warning alarms blared, but the steady hum of the charging weapon faltered and died. "Sometimes the simplest solution works best," he said with a grim smile. They secured the bridge and used the ship's communication system to broadcast their victory to the town below. Cheers erupted over the channel, a sound of pure human joy that filled the alien vessel. 3 days later, a Federation peacekeeping fleet arrived in Earth orbit. Their commanders were stunned to find humans in control of a disabled purifier warship, with the enemy crew locked in their own holding cells. "Impossible," the Federation admiral said when Taeho explained what had happened. "That word doesn't mean much around humans," Taeho replied. In the months that followed, Earth became the center of a Federation investigation. The Purifier faction was disbanded, its leaders brought to justice. More importantly, the Federation Council convened special sessions to discuss the remarkable species they had discovered. Taeho presented his evidence, recordings of human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. He showed how children solved problems that stumped alien scientists, how farmers repurposed simple tools to defeat advanced weapons, how a community stood together rather than sacrificing one of their own. The High Council chamber fell silent when his presentation ended. Finally, the oldest counselor spoke. "In my 3 centuries, I have never witnessed such improbability. These humans accomplish what should not be possible." "Perhaps," said another counselor, "our definition of possible is too limited." The vote was unanimous. Earth would be offered full Federation membership, bypassing the normal centuries-long process, and a new directive was added to all Explorer protocols. In a crisis situation, always seek out or escape to the nearest human. Their improbable solutions may be your only chance of survival. 6 months later, Taiho's ship once again approached Earth, this time openly, and as the Federation's official ambassador. His first meeting was, by his own insistence, with the family that had first taken him in. Jinho, now wearing a junior Federation science uniform, rushed to greet him at the landing pad. "You came back. I told everyone you would. I keep my promises," Taiho said, embracing the boy who had helped save a world. That evening, as humans and Federation representatives gathered to celebrate the new alliance, Taiho watched the families laughing together, sharing stories and food. Children played games with young aliens, uninhibited by differences in appearance or biology. "Your report changed everything," a Federation official told him quietly. "The entire galactic community now looks at humans differently." Taiho nodded, watching Mina teach a young alien visitor how to make a paper airplane. "They saved me, then they saved themselves. And in doing so, they may save us all one day." "How so?" "Because humans don't recognize impossible. They just haven't solved it yet."